Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome to the show. Good Monday, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. We are streaming live, KSGF.com. KSGF app makes it real easy. Any of the show you missed, we have our on-demand section. We got Spotify, all that jazz. We are streaming on YouTube as well. You can watch the show, that thanks to Springfield Raps. Though 1 week from now, you'll be hearing us from Dominican Republic. We will be at our Great Escape, and that's from where we shall do the broadcast. That's going to be sponsored by Ming Auto Beauty Center. Are you all packed? I
No,
I know.
never. I haven't even done that e-ticket.
I've got to do that. I guess I'll do it
Heard it's a
tomorrow. Yeah,
tedious.
yeah. There
Maybe
were
we can
people.
do it together
Yeah,
here at the station.
Yeah, I plan on doing that tomorrow. There were some folks at our Happy Hour Retro Metro that they were talking about it. The ones that are obviously going on the Great Escape, and it's pay. I don't even know what to get into Dominican
Yeah, I
Republic. Is
think
that what
it's
it is?
to get in
Paperwork to
through
get
the
in.
link.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to make sure we take care of that. So you will be hearing from us at least Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thursday and Friday, what do we have? Kyle Wyatt, and then no.
It's James Clary and then Darren Chappell.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so James Clary on Thursday, Darren Chappell on Friday. Is that correct? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you will hear from us. And as always, Dr. John Lilly is going to be on this trip, so you'll hear from him. Some Mark Long, who used to own Garage Experts. You know, they actually, in a tremendous success, handed that off, sold it, some time ago. But he and Shelley, they are going to be joining us. And Mark's filled in for me in the past, and so he's going to jump in some. Have Sarah. I think you're going to maybe do some solo segments. Yeah.
Buckle up, kids.
Buckle up, buttercups. And I'm trying to think. We always open it up. Anyone who goes on the trip that wants to come along and just do a segment or just say hello to someone back here at home, they're allowed to do so. It's always just a great time, and it gives you a chance to hear us from afar and then start planning to join us on the next one that we have. All right. There's been a lot of, you can almost feel this shift occurring culturally of people that once upon a time believe that the single greatest threat to this country was Donald Trump. They're expressing that maybe not so much. And they're just these little nuggets here and there. But culturally, while they are not saying, I'm going to support Trump, there are increasingly individuals that are part of the Hollywood pop culture elite that are at the very least coming out and saying things like, I don't really know that I can vote for Joe Biden this time around, or I made a mistake. I won't be endorsing this upcoming election. We've got some of that audio from The Rock to Michael Rappaport, who is one of those actors a lot of people don't know the name necessarily, but when they see him, they're like, oh, yeah. And he's somewhat relevant because he in the past is, just almost this venomous hatred, not just for Trump, but Trump supporters. And he has gotten to the point during an interview in the last several days said that Trump's on the table for him. And what's interesting oftentimes about these individuals that during the Trump years had Trump derangement syndrome and were hysterical, when they talk about why it is that they are no longer supporting Joe Biden, when they talk about why it is that they are considering Donald Trump, they actually, I know this is crazy, list reasons. It is a shift from, and you notice this from people that were anti-Trump that are now more open to Trump. They went from Trump is horrible, he's awful, he's going to cause World War III. It was just name-calling and accusations, but nothing of real substance, to now that they've evaluated what actually is going on. When they demonstrate that they recognize the reality of what has been occurring over the last 4 years, all of a sudden their mind starts to change. In other words, they realize what's going on. They're not willfully living in their detached bubble any longer. They sort of poke through just a little bit. We see from the outside this snow globe of left-wingism, if you will, in which these people create fear for themselves even. They create this false past that occurred in which things were just so horrible under Donald Trump. But they don't actually ever list the reasons other than he just said mean things or he was racist. They just, again, name call. But every once in a while you get glimpses of these people. They just poke their finger through that snow globe that they've put themselves in, and they begin to see what's actually going on in the world, and that world being with the average person, the average American. And when that happens, a remarkable thing occurs. They begin to realize that things are much, much worse for the average person in this country than they were under Donald Trump. And the fact that they are beginning to express that, it isn't so much that, oh, well, Michael Rappaport hated Trump and now he doesn't, so that means I'm going to support Trump. But there's almost this feeling of permission amongst people who just absolutely hated Trump and felt that they had to go vote for Joe Biden because they hated Trump, because Trump was going to destroy the world. And when they begin to see other people around them who had always expressed those same beliefs going, wait a minute, maybe I was wrong, it causes people slowly but surely to go, well, wait a minute. Maybe it wasn't that bad. And this slow shift is not a shift that is working in the favor of the Democrats for the upcoming election. So we've got that plus much more this morning. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk a text line 447 KSGF. The latest news update now. The first alert forecast sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. From Color 10 Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Partly sunny today, a high near 79. Clouds 53 for a low tonight. Slight chance of rain throughout the day, a high near 70 tomorrow. And then Wednesday, a 60% chance of rain with a high near 63. Now, this says partly sunny. With obviously the solar eclipse taking place today. And there's been a great deal of, question as to whether or not we're actually going to be able to observe it. Obviously, the light to dark is something that is going to be observable, but will the actual eclipse itself be observable with glasses, of course? And everything I hear, though, you see descriptions of partly cloudy or partly sunny, is that the clouds are expected to be very high and of a nature that, in all likelihood, it isn't going to be a full blocking out of the eclipse. So you should be all right. And, man, the glasses went fast at they were gone by 4 or 5 o'clock rather. So for
People
those
were waiting for him too.
I don't know if I told you this, but at one point, Tiny, who is the owner of Retro Metro, it was really hopping. It was really packed. And he walks behind me and he says, do you have any glasses? And I said, oh, we ran out of them. And he laughed. He goes, no, I'm just joking. He said, we had people here at 11 o'clock this morning that were asking if I guess they thought that we had the glasses there ahead of time or something. And he said all day long, people have been calling and trying to get these. And so they're hot item, popular item. I've already seen postings where to get them if you can't, if places have sold out. And it was one of the reasons that we decided, I think 6 months ago, we need to partner up with someone, get these glasses, because last time around, they were just a hot commodity. And we thought, oh, it'd be a nice thing to be able to do. In one of the other aspects of it that I thought was great was the fact that many of you we met for the first time. It was just enough to prompt you to come out to the happy hour, and some weren't able to stay, but it was still nice to meet those of you that were able to come by, and some did stay and had never been to Retro Metro and had never been to a happy hour, and it was one of the busier ones. It was there was a few more people than what I would consider the normal amount, so it was a really great number of people. So those of you who came out and joined us for Retro Metro during the happy hour, appreciate it. It was great to see some of you again. And then meet some of the new ones. If you've not eaten there, or if you did for the first time on Friday and really enjoyed it, be sure to sign up for our lunch bunch at ksgf.com. And if you're chosen, then you and up to 5 people of your choosing will join Sarah and me for a full-blown lunch there at Retro Metro. A1 Custom Car Care financing is available in these harder than, well, times that are economically harder than many adults alive have ever experienced. You know, we hear about the Carter era, and that was an era that, while some of you listening remember and lived through, some of you listening weren't even alive then. Some of you were, but you don't recall because you were too young. But this is, less than ideal. That is for sure. And they talk about the mounting credit card debt, and those interest rates, of course, credit card interest rates are it's very high. And if you don't have extra savings and you have some sort of major issue with your vehicle, then you've got some difficult choices to be made. And especially if maybe you don't have the best credit in the world, and then you're looking at, perhaps getting one of the few loans you can with these real crazy interest rates. Well, A1 Custom Car Care has financing available for work on your vehicle with 101 days, 0% financing. So if it's something that you're going to be able to pay off in the first 2 or 3 months or so, then you will not have any of the interest rate charges that are there. Now, of course, there are some fees that are involved outside of that, but that's all information you can get from A1 Custom Car Care. Is it the right decision for you? That's just going to depend on your particular situation and your choice to make, but it is something that is available to you. A1 Custom Car Care. Speaking of Bidenomics, 99-cent stores closing all 371 locations, citing inflationary pressures, a.k.a. the Bidenomics that the Biden campaign has insisted on continuing to brag about. This is a very interesting campaign move on their part. While it has been noted in editorials and even in interviews with some Democrats, they find themselves quite frustrated that Joe Biden and his campaign continue to go out there and claim credit for the economy, because people do not like the economy. Average people don't. All 371 locations of the 99-cent store only stores are shutting down, with company executives noting the difficult decision on such causes as inflationary pressure. The company, which opened its first location in 1982, boasts of having the lowest price guaranteed on its website. The claim is soon to be no more, with the operations announcing Thursday that the liquidation sales were to begin on Friday. An official press release said an orderly wind down of the business operation is starting after entering a plea agreement with Hilco Global to, among other things, liquidate all merchandise owned by the company and dispose of certain fixtures, furnishings, and equipment of the company's stores. The hundreds of stores will begin selling all of their remaining items and equipment before the real estate itself is sold by Hilco Real Estate. The company's location spans across Arizona, California, Nevada, and Texas. CEO Mike Simoncic announced that he will be stepping down, noting that it is an extremely difficult decision and is not the outcome we expected or hoped to achieve. Unfortunately, he said the last several years have presented significant and lasting challenges in the retail environment, including the unprecedented impact of COVID-19 pandemic, shifting consumer demand, rising levels of shrink, persistent inflationary pressures, and other microeconomic headwinds, all of which have greatly hindered the company's ability to operate. We deeply appreciate the dedicated employees, customers, partners, and communities who have collectively supported 99-cent only stores for decades. Now, here, of course, illustrates a couple, once again, the people who are harmed by the economic policies of the Biden administration. And it is the average family, it is the lower income and middle income family in this country. The members of The View who tell you, forget about the economy, there are greater things at stake, which is why we need to continue on the path that we're on. They're not affected by this. Do you think any of the Hollywood elites that threw the fundraiser for Joe Biden just a week or so ago are impacted by the 99-cent only stores being shut down? Do you think that Stephen Colbert, who hosted that event or emceed that event, is impacted by this? Of course not. Think about all those employees. Jobs gone. Gone. Not to mention, for a segment of the population, the 99-cent only store was a place that they could make their dollar go longer, go further, stretch it out. These are the people that are hurt by these policies. These are the people that the Democrat Party, be it locally or nationally, claim are the people that they care about. It's not unlike the compassion of the left, whose virtue signaling of forcing businesses to jack up the minimum wage out in California, and then that resulting in the loss of jobs, people, average American, losing their jobs. And then, of course, it adds to inflation. You got the price increases going up. There's not a single one of those big dollar donors that are writing checks to the Biden-Harris reelection campaign that are impacted by that in the least. This is why those people can afford to support the Democrat Party, because the fallout does not impact them. This is, for a lot of people, why there is a great deal of aggravation towards that segment of the population, not because they're massively wealthy, but because they actively do what they can to put people in charge that cause harm to people who are less wealthy. Put in policies that make people have to decide what groceries they are and are not going to buy. policies that force small businesses to go under, policies that force individuals who are working paycheck to paycheck to suddenly find themselves without a job. That's reality. And so here, once again, a victim of Bidenomics and its average working Americans and families searching for ways to make their dollar stretch further because it has less value to it due to Bidenomics. And they have one less option on the table now. Congratulations to the Democrat Party, creating more victims. This pairs with this latest analysis. I'm going to take a break. Grocery prices nearing 40% higher than in 2019. 40% higher. But we're told that the prices are coming down. This is what they're telling us. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Analysis, grocery prices nearing 40% higher than in 2019. A $100 grocery haul in 2019 cost almost $140 today, nearly 40% more than the same common items, causing consumers to become creative to cope with crippling inflation. Of course, now the 99-cent only store is not an option for these folks because they had announced, due to Bidenomics, they're closing down. According to the Wall Street Journal analysis of Nielsen IQ data on the price of everyday food, such as meat, vegetables, starches, and snacks, Americans are facing a dramatic increase all across the categories. Journal Stephanie Stamm and Jesse Newman wrote, "A Benjamin just isn't what it used to be." That, alongside graphs showing that the average $100 grocery list now costs 36.5% more compared to 5 years ago. This means in order to spend the same amount of food as you did in 2019, you have to place almost $37 worth of items back on the shelves before checking out. Some items have increased more dramatically, such as eggs at 63% higher, sports drinks up 80%. Prices increased by 1% from February of last year to this year, but the most dramatic jump took place from 2022 to 23 with a 10.2% surge. Executives have said that higher prices were needed to offset their own rising costs for ingredients, transportation, and labor. Some U.S. lawmakers in the Biden administration have criticized food companies for using tactics such as shrinkflation, in which companies shrink their product but not their prices. So in other words, coming up with alternatives so you can still at least afford things. And the people who have caused this demonize those who are trying to navigate through this stuff. Sharon Felton, 74, of Vermont, told the publication that she treats grocery shopping days as though she's foraging during an apocalypse, getting as much food as possible as cheaply as possible. Grocery prices up 36.5% overall since 2019. Again, eggs 63%, sugar up 38%, dish soap up 46%, sandwich bread up 34%, cereal up 29%. Now, this is reality. On the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, Democrats sometimes wake up, but it's far too late. So much damage has been done already. Can we have a real recovery? Well, it isn't going to be easy. And I think that that's something that Trump needs to make very clear, that this is not going to be an overnight fix. The damage is deep and the damage is wide. And what makes it even more problematic is we are talking about a Democrat Party that is okay with it being worse. And we know this because they claim that that it's all going according to plan. They are embracing these results. Joe Biden is out there on the campaign trail, taking credit for it. This is not the Democrat Party of Bill Clinton, in which the Clinton administration took some massive losses in his first 2 years as president and the Republican Revolution came about. And the Clinton team realized we got to shift. People are not happy. Things are not going as well as we had hoped, so they shift tactics. They began moving a little away from the left. That's not what the Democrat Party does today. The Democrat Party today, instead of reacting to the negative impact that their policies are having on the average American, and the average American saying, we don't like this, they double down and tell you, well, you will learn to like it. Oh, you don't want to buy electric vehicles? Well, we'll just make laws that force you to do it. Oh, you don't like the fact that our inflationary policies are causing your grocery bill to go up? We're going to demonize and blame the people who are running the grocery stores. This is not a political party that is any longer concerned about actually making things better. That is not of interest to them. And this is where a number of people are beginning to wake up. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. First alert forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Partly sunny, 79 for a high today, 53 overnight, low tonight. Slight chance of rain throughout the day with a high near 70 tomorrow, Wednesday, a 60% chance of rain with a high near 63. A former just venomously anti-Trump or an anti-Trump supporter, actor Michael Rappaport, sat down and did an interview. And I'm not sure who this individual is with whom he did the interview, but this is it was taped, and this is some of what Rappaport had to say.
All honesty, I have educated myself so much since 2016, and I have a ways to go. My political views have changed immensely, and they're changing at a rapid pace. I will not vote for Joe Biden. I do not support anybody from the squad. I think they're totally full of shit. I think they're dangerous. I think they're race hustlers. I think they're cons. I think inevitably they want to get themselves production deals to produce documentaries. I think they're three-card Monty playing bull artists. I think they totally have an agenda. I have said, not to go down the rabbit hole, that at this point when we're doing this interview, voting for Trump is on the table. People are like, what are you talking about? That's my reality. That is my reality. I will not support anybody who's anti-Israel. I will not support anybody that is anti, making America safe. I'm not supporting anybody that is cool with the fact that it takes me 2.5 hours to get back into America from Toronto at the what is it called? The passport at the
passport control.
The line to go from Toronto to New York. It takes me 2.5 hours, as it should, but it takes you 2 minutes to cross the border. I'm not down with that. I'm not down with police officers in the greatest city on earth getting beaten up, and you're a legal immigrant, and then you have no bail. I'm not down with
and flipping off the camera.
Flipping off the camera like Tupac when he got arrested and he was coming out in the red Detroit Red Wings T-shirt. I'm not down with going into a Costco or a 7-Eleven or a Rite Aid, as I videotaped once and went crazy viral, cleaning out the spot and walking like you're on like a beautiful spring day walk. I'm not down with any of that. So any of these people that support it, I'm not voting for them.
All right. So again, Michael Rappaport is an actor. He's been very, very, very outspoken about how horrible Trump and Trump supporters were in the past. What he does here, though, that is different than what he has done in the past, and what a lot of these individuals that are high profile, the few that do start to express their change in perspective here, is they're talking about things that are actually going on. They're talking about factual things. Before, it was just Trump is a danger to, quote, democracy. Trump is a racist. Trump is a divider. Trump is going to this. Trump is going to that. When they begin to look at what is actually occurring, not the scary monster that's hiding under the bed that never actually emerges, but you're still scared that it's there because in your mind, you create this imagery of all the horrible things that are going to happen if you set your foot down on the floor, and that monster is going to grab you, and it's all in your head. But when these individuals start to really look at what is happening, then their perspective changes. He didn't even get to the economy. The Rock, who is, of course, much more well-known and is beloved because his characters are, to the point that people, and there have been articles written, would he run for president? Would he run for president? He, of course, last time was instrumental in the unified voices of individuals that endorsed Joe Biden for president. This time around, though, may be different.
You made that endorsement in 2020. Are you happy with the state of America?
Am I happy with the state of America right now? Well, that answer is no. Do I believe we're going to get better? I believe in that. I'm an optimistic guy, and I believe we can get better. The endorsement that I made years ago with Biden was one I thought was the best decision for me at that time. And I thought back then, when we talk about, hey, I'm in this position where I have some influence, and it's my job then. I felt like that then. It's my job now to exercise my influence and share with this. This is who I'm going to endorse. Am I going to do that again this year? That answer is no.
Now, that's obviously not an endorsement for Trump, but again, it's breaking through this emotional wall, I believe, for a lot of people that fear Trump because emotionally they are constantly receiving and bombarded with what people like Rappaport and others were doing through the Trump years. And that is talking about how scary and awful and horrible things were going to be under Trump, and then how awful and horrible things were when they weren't in reality. But now they're recognizing what it really does look like when things are going poorly. When things realistically are just that. And when you begin to see some of these people, it's occurred to a great deal with rappers, people in the rap industry. You have some other high-profile entertainment individuals of the black community like Charlemagne the God and some of these others that, while, again, they're not necessarily coming out and saying, oh, I'm switching to Donald Trump because he's the answer. They're doing something that is horribly timed for the Biden administration, and that is talking about things are not good. Things are not good. And it certainly may not necessarily cause the emotionally driven voter who isn't necessarily tied to the Democrat Party or the Republican Party, but generally the younger individuals who have voted Democrat because emotionally they have been whipped into this frenzy that Trump represents the Republican Party and he's horrible and he's awful. And the answer was clear. Democrats always right. Biden is the answer to everything. Donald Trump is always wrong and horrible. And now some of their people are beginning to talk about other things. And that is what's actually happening. And it gives a bit of almost, there's safety in numbers. And if people in your culture are uniformly all speaking the message that they were 4 years ago about Donald Trump being awful and evil, to be a lone voice that says, well, wait a minute, this isn't necessarily the case, is something that is not even conceivable to people within that culture. But there's strength in numbers, and once some of them, it's like being in a cult. And when you start, you see this, if you ever watch a documentary about cults and what would lead to the demise of a cult, it is the eventual breakdown of loyalty amongst those under the cult leader, and that is something that occurs because it starts with one person that's questioning things. That's how it always starts that way. There's one person that, like, this doesn't seem right for whatever. There was just something that happens, and they poke through that glass globe, and they begin to question, and the action is swift, just like we see with the media and the Democrat Party today. Anyone who speaks out of turn, anyone who questions Joe Biden is a bad person, an insurrectionist, a semi-fascist. But if that person continues to question, there's always one or two others that are at least listening. They may not acknowledge it. And at some point, every additional person that recognizes the truth and verbalizes the truth is that much, it makes it that much safer for others to begin to look at reality. And while they may not all come to the same conclusion, the more people that look at reality, the more likelihood that you're going to have people that recognize what is really going on. And the timing of this could be as such to where those individuals that thought Biden was the answer to everyone coming together and the adults are back in the room and being respected on the world stage and everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be all of the the instability that occurred during the Trump years. We weren't going to have to worry about it. It wasn't going to be in the news all the time. Everything was going to be peaceful and fine, and that hasn't happened. Some of those people will potentially vote for Trump. Many of them won't, but they just won't do anything at all. They'll say, what's the point? I hate Trump. I can't vote for him. Clearly, Biden's not the answer. Or they'll vote for somebody like RFK Jr. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com. New York City homeowners are being told that they will be arrested if they do not pay the electric and water bills of people who are illegally squatting in their property. Pile on top of the inflation and border security, this is, again, where so many Americans, independent voters, people who live in the cities, the average person is beginning to wake up and recognize that in terms of meaningful results, the Democrat Party is the party of criminals. I mean, it really is. The woke city of New York is being overrun by rampant crime, illegal immigrants, and now squatters, thanks to a law that turns them into tenants after 30 days. But this is in line with the way that the Democrats operate. If you can make it into this country illegally and stay here for a certain amount of time, evade deportation, we'll figure out a way to make you a citizen. We'll figure out a way to make you permanent. Under one-party rule, the Democrat rule in New York, if you break into someone's home, as long as you can make it 30 days, we will declare it yours. New York City homeowners are being pushed to financial limits that allows squatters to live rent-free at the same time the owners are forced to keep paying electricity and maintenance bills for the apartments. Under New York City law, anyone who lives in a home or apartment for at least 30 days can claim squatters' rights, even if they broke into the property without permission from the owner. Several homeowners told CBS that they would be arrested instantly if they are to change the locks, evict the squatters, or turn off necessities such as hot water. They're forced to pay for the upkeep of the homes, while squatters, many of whom are illegal immigrants, get to live in them for free. One woman told an outlet that she's in debt, maxed out her credit cards, and having to pay for all of the expenses as squatters take over her home. Now, you tell me when it's just beyond me what the Democrat Party is able to get away with. And that they are able to successfully, and it's with the corrupt media, market themselves as looking out for the little guy. I mean, here's a woman who's maxed out her credit cards. Maxed them out to pay for the bills of these illegal squatters, because if she doesn't, she will go to jail. Homeowner Susan Mascara told CBS News they turned off the hot water and then reported that they had no hot water. It's a $250 fine per day, up to $15,000 punishable by 5 years in jail. This is what she faces. 5 years in jail and $15,000. Another said he pays the gas and electric bills every month despite not receiving rent from the squatters. And it just goes on. And this isn't a scenario in which some bureaucrat screwed up, some wrong-headed idiot made some sort of mistake. You see these stories, we've seen them over time. They're usually in these left-wing cities where, some kid sets up a lemonade stand in order to raise money for some cause, and then the city shuts them down because they don't have a permit, and then there's outcry, and then the city's like, we made a mistake, shouldn't have done that, and so forth. This is deliberate. This is policy. This is Democrat policy in New York City. Not an accident. Not oh gosh, we weren't thinking this through, this was unintended. This is exactly how it was intended. Just like the following story. 2 men arrested for allegedly trying to lure children into a van were let go after a Chicago area judge released them under the recently posted No Bail Safety Act, prevented the men from being held. The 2 suspects tried to lure several 14-year-old children into their van with promises of games and the promise of meeting a famous athlete. Fortunately, the children did not get in the van. Police were called by a parent. The police soon detained the 2 men, reportedly found a mattress in the van along with a used crack pipe, numerous condoms, lubricant, and binoculars, and several open bottles of alcohol. The men were arrested, charged with 2 counts of child luring by a person older than 21 and 2 counts of attempted child abduction. They're also in trouble over their parole and probation violations. During their first hearing, though, Assistant State Attorney Sarah Dale Schmidt advised the judge that the officers were not detainable. The judge wanted to make special note of the situation. Quote, "I want to note for the record that as to each of these defendants, child luring and attempted child abduction are not enumerated offenses on which the people can seek detention. I want to note that attempted animal cruelty is one where detention can be sought, but not attempted child abduction for whatever that's worth. I want that to be reflected on the record." Ortiz then ordered both men to go on electronic ankle monitoring so they could be released. She did, however, bar the men from free movement days, which most people on ankle monitors are allowed to have so that they can leave their home twice a week. And I'm sure that ankle monitor will stop them anyhow. Now, there are reports that they're saying, well, it was a mistake. It was a mistaken reading of the statute, of the new laws. Regardless, whether that is true or not, this is becoming commonplace. And anywhere that Democrats have one-party rule and have their say and have their way, criminals are elevated, while the average citizen is punished. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. While squatters are being given rights under Democrat rule, and landlords are threatened with prison time if they do not continue to pay the bills for those people who have broken into their homes, and individuals in Illinois that try to lure children into vans are let out with no bail. Elderly woman convicted for praying in the Capitol on J6. This is the priorities of the Democrat Party. 70-year-old woman, 71, prayed outside the Capitol. When the doors were open and people were waved in, she went in for about 10 minutes, sat and had a friendly conversation with the police officer before she left. But the Biden administration has sentenced her to a year in jail and ordered her to pay fines of more than $200,000. That's the Democrats' America. Springfield Chalk 1041. My name is Nick Reed. If you've priced hotels lately, Airbnbs, you know that it can be quite an expense. When it comes to the world of RVing, many people don't even explore it because they think, I can't afford it. That's for people that have a great deal of money set aside. I got a lot of walking around money, if you will. With Wilder RV and the selection they have, and you can see this at wilderrv.com, you can get a full family, brand new RV for what it would cost to get you and your kids rooms for one overnight stay at a hotel or a weekend at an Airbnb or even one night at an Airbnb. It's not nearly as cost prohibitive as a lot of people think. Now, of course, you can, and they've got these tremendous, just incredible RVs at Wilder RV that are going to be for those that maybe do have a little extra spending money. But point being is, if you want to enjoy that lifestyle, it does not have to be out of your price range realistically. I recommend you check them out, wilderrv.com, and you may be thinking to yourself, well, that is a lot less than I thought it was going to be. But what happens once they add the fees in and this in and that in? They do not do that. The price you see is the price you get. Frankly, they don't have time to fool around with people and then, get you in and then really try to sell you. That's not how they operate. One of the reasons I recommend them, and it's why I recommend that even though it's just a bit over an hour north on 13 up in Clinton, Missouri, well worth the drive. WilderRV.com. You can also go to KSGF.com and find them under Nick's endorsements. There's one issue that Democrats are banking on in terms of getting out the vote, and that is abortion. And just so you know, I'm not going to spend a great deal of time talking about this, but I just want to make a few comments because Trump has announced that he's going to release details of his position on this. And it's something that he really, I think, does need to do because it is the one issue that Democrats can get out there and campaign on. And I think that says a lot about that as a party, the party of slavery. The Democrat Party, the belief that certain people should have complete ownership over the lives and deaths of other people. It's the exact same argument that was made during slavery. And instead of, though, the right of choice, the choice was property rights. And the human beings that were bought and sold and beaten and sometimes killed by slave owners, they were referred to as property because making it an issue of property rights it makes it a lot more acceptable to people that maybe aren't necessarily or weren't necessarily in the world of slavery. They themselves didn't buy and sell slaves, but, they believe in property rights. And so if I believe in property rights, gosh, I guess I do have to support slavery, even though I may personally be opposed to it. I believe in other people's rights to choose what to do with their own property. Same arguments made when it comes to abortion. I may not be somebody that personally believes in abortion, but it's a choice. It's their, quote, property. That's the same dark perspective that Democrats use to drive much of their support during the days of slavery. We've been here before as a country. And for a lot of people, it works. There are a couple of things that I do believe in terms of messaging, if you will, that Republicans need to do on this. And one, when you're talking about 16 weeks and 18 weeks, as it's been floated that perhaps, Trump has talked about 16 or 18 weeks, need to stop talking about it in terms of weeks and talk about it in terms of months. Because there are a lot of people, you hear weeks, and even though you say 16 weeks or 18 weeks, and they stack up and you're talking about 16 or 18, a week still does not seem like that amount of time. But when you talk about pregnancy at 4.5 months instead of 18 weeks, I think in the minds of a lot of people that's a much different thing. I believe that partially that's part of the reason that people who are pro-abortion talk in terms of weeks instead of months. Months are much easier to comprehend in terms of where people are along in the pregnancy. It's not going to change everyone's mind. But I do believe that that gives an advantage to the pro-abortion people because people they just somehow aren't getting as accurate as a comprehension as if you say 4 months or 4.5 months. The Democrats, with the help of the corrupt media, have also for a very long time been able to get away with claiming that they are not for unlimited abortions while actually supporting unlimited abortion all the way up until birth. And I know this because any time we talk about this issue here and how extreme the Democrats are on it, and in reality, when polled, the majority of Americans are aligned with the Republican Party as opposed to the Democrat Party because the vast majority of Americans do not support abortion up until birth. And inevitably, when I talk about that component, I will get angry emails from people claiming that I'm lying and that no Democrat supports abortion up until birth. And I generally don't respond to emails of the sort or text of the sort, but I have a couple of times, almost as an experiment, and I simply ask, show me the Democrat legislature or the Democrat plan that list where they think abortion should be illegal. If they don't support it up until birth, when do they support making it illegal? At what point? I never get a response back. And do you know why? Because there isn't any. I think that, and it may be, I don't know whether it would pay off, but it would be interesting to see if the Trump or the Republican position, I'd say it'd have to be the Trump position, is, hey, if I get elected president, I know there's a lot of different perspectives on this issue. Here's where I think, let's say 4.5 months. But I'm willing to compromise on this stuff. So I welcome the Democrats to come to the table with where they believe abortion should be outlawed. At what point should abortion be outlawed? Ball is in their court. What would the Democrats do? We've seen that the Democrats react to the extreme wing of their party. We're seeing it with our foreign policy is being dictated by the extreme anti-Semitic wing of the Democrat Party right now. That would put the Democrats, I believe, in a very difficult position because what they don't want to do is anger the Democrat base or the part of the Democrat base that is for abortion all the way up until birth. Even if they were to come out and to say, well, all right, we're for outlawing abortion at 8.5 months, they would still get tremendous backlash from the extreme pro-abortion wing of the Democrat Party. They have been allowed to get away with not supporting any sort of outlawing of abortion while claiming that they aren't not supporting any form of outlawing of abortion. In other words, they say that we don't support it up until birth, but they refuse to say where the line is. So it would be interesting to see the Trump campaign say, here's where I believe it is, but I'm willing to compromise. Where is your line in the sand? Where do you believe, if you don't believe it is up until birth, what point? And let's see if we can find some place in the middle there. I believe at the very least what that would do is expose the Democrats to a lot of Americans who genuinely believe they don't support abortion up until birth. They would see the Democrat Party supporting abortion up until birth. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Latest news update. First Alert Forecast, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Partly sunny, high near 79 for the day. Clouds, 53 tonight. Slight chance of rain throughout the day with a high near 70. And Wednesday, 60% chance of rain, high near 63. We partner with our friends Wonders of Wildlife, Dogwood Canyon, Ozark Mill, Finley Farms to send you to some of the favorites in the 417. You can register at ksgf.com or the mobile app. Your chance to win a prize package from Wonders of Wildlife, Dogwood Canyon, and the Ozark Mill at Finley Farm. Just go to ksgf.com to get registered for that. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Well, spring it is here, which means those severe storms are going to be popping up quite a bit. We've already seen it last week in the Buffalo, Bolivar, and Fairgrove area. So it is important to know a great roofing company if you ever need them, and that is why I recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. There's a lot of reasons why I recommend them, but one of the big things for me is they are not going to take advantage of you just because there was a storm in your area. Now, whenever you call the Pyramid team, they're going to come out, they'll do a very thorough roof inspection, they'll take tons of photos and videos so you can also see what is going on as well, and then they're going to work through a plan with you. Maybe you're in a situation where you don't need a whole new roof, but maybe just a simple roof repair. The Pyramid team, they're going to be upfront and honest with you. So whether you have wind damage, hail damage, or maybe you just want a little bit of a peace of mind, go ahead and give Josh a call today and schedule that free roof inspection. Now you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There was some outfit that did an analysis, and it showed that during the eclipse of 2017, vehicle fatalities increased 31%.
Really?
Yeah. You know why?
People were looking.
That's what I thought too at first, but evident that actually encompasses the day before and the day after. It's just because there's so many people traveling for the most part.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that there's just more traffic. With more traffic becomes more fatalities, and so it was largely caused by people that were just out on the road at an increased rate in order to head to somewhere where there was totality. As opposed to what I initially, you see the headline and you think people are driving, trying to look up at it,
Right.
wearing those glasses that you can't see anything at all.
Exactly.
Because I don't know if you've put those glasses on,
Yeah.
but you can't see at all. It's funny when you give someone a pair of the glasses and they haven't ever utilized glasses like that before. I guess just, I don't know, did not have them last time around. And they put them on, and they're like, oh, you can't see anything. And other than if you look at the sun, you can see the sun. And so, yeah, in my mind, I'm like, what are people wearing those, trying to look up while driving down the interstate? But yeah, it's just the increase in traffic. Though I'm sure that there probably were some people that did have accidents because they were trying to look up at it, or maybe pulled over on the side of the road and, somebody else, you just have a lot of cars where they normally aren't. But yeah, evidently that it's an area of concern.
Either the highway patrol, or I follow this storm chasers group that just follows severe weather. I can't remember which one it was, but one of them posted an update a couple days ago. Now, just remember, everyone, please don't wear those glasses while you were driving because you will have an accident.
Yeah, you cannot see.
No, you can't.
Any of that.
Did you see the map? I think it was Airbnb that posted a map of all of the rentals along where you can see the totality of the eclipse. I mean, it's just bright red, just little dots, and all of the hotels, it's got them listed on there too that are completely booked up. So yeah, a lot of people are going to be traveling.
Morgan Wallen was arrested in Nashville. Did you see this? Evidently, he was on the roof of a bar and he threw a chair off of it, and it landed just feet from police.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's interesting because on one hand, you think, well, what a shame to see some of these country music artists that once upon a time seem to represent a culture of, hometown goodness and a departure from what would be thought of as behavior by rap artists or even hard rock artists, rock and roll. But then you think back to the days of Johnny Cash and some of that period of time where they were bad boys. And it was almost as if some of that culture seems to be coming back around. There's a story. I just think this story is fantastic. Daily Caller, Biden went to the mat for young voters and student loans. Now they're abandoning him. And it's about how this effort to essentially bribe voters by forcing other people to pay for their financial commitments, despite the fact that the Supreme Court said you can't do that. And he continues this defiance. And the hope was, particularly for younger people who had not paid off their student loans yet, that, hey, I'll force other people to take on the commitment you made. And the idea is that, well, they're going to vote for me because of that. But it's not working. In fact, the opposite is happening. And what the Democrats are seeing is an increase in young people that are moving away from the Biden administration. Adolfo Mongo, a Democrat strategist based in Michigan, told the Daily Caller News Foundation, quote, he, being Biden, is doing all the right things that you would think that young voters would flock to, but unfortunately, they haven't been able to put that message out there in the community. Well, you've done 8 things, but the 9th thing is unforgiven, and you put your arm around this warmonger in Israel, and then, you can't unwrap yourself from him. So it's referencing here why some young people are believed to be moving away from Biden. But the first part of this, I think it's interesting, but it's also telling. And this is a creation of their own making. You would think young people would flock to him, right? I mean, look what he's doing. He's unburdening them. He's taking what was their commitment and saying, I'm going to make someone else pay for it. Well, why are they not flocking to him? I'll tell you why. Because our culture, and largely in a political context, the Democrat Party has turned young people into ungrateful, center-of-the-universe individuals who think they're entitled to absolutely everything. Spoiled brats are never grateful. If you have ever in your life, I remember being a kid, and my first vehicle, and it was not what one it wasn't a vehicle that reflected wealth. It was a pre-owned vehicle that had a tremendous amount of trouble. I mean, it just did. It had a tremendous amount of trouble. And it was something, though, that was gifted to me. It was given to me. But I had grown up my entire life working for things. That was something that I'm so very grateful was instilled in me. I had paper routes from fifth grade. There really never was an extended period of time I wasn't doing something to make money. I had a paper route. Then I wanted some things that, I wasn't able to afford with one paper route, and I did get an allowance as long as I did certain jobs. Mow the lawn, do this. These were things that I was required to do, and the things that I was wanting to purchase, those jobs did not quite make it. And so I got a second paper route. I remember the day I learned that a paper route adjacent to my paper route came open. And I thought, I can take that one too. It worked out brilliantly because they were right there next to one another. And, I just always have done that. So even when I had a vehicle that was gifted to me, and I say, some people, if your parents give you a vehicle, you may not think of it as a gift, but I did. I thought of it as a gift. I did not, and I suppose this is part of my point, the difference between those people who are entitled versus those who do not feel entitled. I remember being so incredibly grateful. I mean, so grateful. You could have given me this is mid-90s, an $80,000 vehicle, and I wouldn't have been more excited than I was to get the vehicle I did. I was just so grateful for it. At the same time, I remember someone that was in my circle of sorts, we were friends, who was very fortunate and whose family did have a lot of money and had been given a vehicle that was a brand new vehicle, and it was one of the vehicles at the time that was the hot vehicle to have, and how indifferent he was to it. He wasn't excited about it. He was just totally indifferent to it. And I remember at the time thinking, wow, what a difference here. I mean, I can only imagine what he thinks about my car, but it was the greatest thing in my world. I mean, I would hand wash it. I treated it like it was the most expensive vehicle in the world because I had a great appreciation for it. While my friend here, who never wanted for anything, he just got everything that he wanted, really, really, really nice top-of-the-line car, was meaningless to him. And that's what we've created with so many of these young people. So whenever the Biden administration comes in and tells millions of young people, oh, that commitment you made financially, don't you worry, I'm going to make someone else take care of it. And then they expect them to be grateful. Spoiled people are not grateful. See, they expected, they were like, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. Oh, this is such a huge burden lifted off me. Oh man, I even if I don't agree with some of the policies or the direction of the country, I've got to pay the guy back. I mean, he did this for me. That's not how entitled people work. It's somewhat amusing to watch the Biden campaign and the Biden administration scratch their head wondering why it is that gifting all of these entitled young people the absolution of a commitment they made has not resulted in gratefulness. It's like some parent who has spoiled their child their entire lives. You've probably seen these videos, and then here's a sweet 16, and they get this, $130,000 car to their daughter that's entitled, and then she's ticked off because it's not the color she liked, and they're just like, they can't believe this. How could she be so ungrateful? Well, you created that. And so to see the administration fall flat and not succeed in gifting entitled young people something that they thought would result in them being ever grateful it's to some degree rather, humorous to watch that play out. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. If you haven't checked out last week's Nick and Cole's Fido Friends, brought to you by Nicole Brock, American Family Insurance, it's at ksgf.com. You scroll down a bit, it'll be off to the right-hand side, and this is where we team up with the Humane Society of Southwest Missouri. And Homer was the name of the most recent dog. Now, I don't know whether he's been adopted or not, but I'm just going to say it, if you like ugly, cute dogs, you know what I'm talking about. They're just so ugly, they're cute. I feel as if Homer fits into that category. That was my interpretation of Homer. Now, you may think, well, I don't think he's that ugly cute. But anyhow, point being, check out the video. You can decide for yourself. Every week, we team up to bring a different dog that needs to be adopted from Humane Society of Southwest Missouri, and you can see those again at ksgf.com. We had a great conversation with Alex and Anthony Carricker on Friday as we broadcast live this past Friday at Scramblers. And it was, among other things, about allowing them to be your advocate. And what they find is that oftentimes people who are looking to get a home loan will apply, and then you try to keep things hidden because you're a little embarrassed, or you're not embarrassed necessarily, but you think, well, that may make it more difficult for this process to become easy. And then they inevitably find out, but it sets things back because they are, think of them as a, quote, defense attorney, if you will. If they know everything ahead of time, then it's going to help them know the absolute best approach. And I just mention that because although that may not be a particular situation that you need to concern yourself with, it gives you an idea of how above and beyond they do go, because you don't necessarily get that sort of advice from every institution that handles home loans. But that is what you get with the Carrickers, and I want a great homeloan.com because you do. The First Alert forecast, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks, home improvements from Color 10 Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Partly sunny day, a high near 79, should be great eclipse viewing weather. Tonight, cloudy, 53. Tomorrow, a slight chance of rain throughout the day with a high near 70. And Wednesday, a 60% chance of rain with a high near 63. On the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line regarding the disappointment that the Biden administration is experiencing with the transferring of the financial commitment so many young people made for college loans, that being transferred to people who did not make that commitment, and the fact that support for the Biden campaign is eroding. It's not going the other way. The bribe is not working, and they don't understand this. In the last segment, we talked about this is when entitled people are not grateful for things that are given to them. And we have an entitled generation that we're talking about here. The text message, remember this, Nick, it is what have you done for me lately syndrome. And the attention span for lately has gotten to about half of a millisecond. I don't think even that necessary, and the point is accurate, but I think that it is that entitled people are immune from it because they don't believe or feel as if you really did anything for me that was a gift even. This is what you're supposed to do in their minds. This is the bare minimum. They don't feel grateful because they don't feel the sense that that was something that they should have to have done anyway, and that was abide by their commitment. They feel virtuous in this belief that they should not have to pay for something that they committed to pay back. And so they don't really see Biden violating the Supreme Court's opinion and transferring their commitment to other people as something to be grateful for. That's just the way it's supposed to be. We talked a couple weeks ago about the typical approach that people in government take when it comes to expiring taxes or the sunsetting of taxes, and how it's a bait and switch. Rarely, if ever, do you find a municipality that says, hey, we'd love for you to vote for this tax, but it will sunset. So don't worry, after this many years, it will go away. And then when that moment comes, you never get a thank you from that local government for the effort that you went through in making those payments for 10 years. They never say, thank you, we really appreciate it. You committed to 10 years of a 3/4 cent sales tax or whatever the time and cost of it was. And so we just really appreciate that. Okay, we're done. Sort of like when you finish paying off your loan and you get a letter, hey, congratulations, you've paid it off. Here's your title or whatever it is. That it never works that way. Instead, they tell you why you need to continue to pay it beyond the commitment. And that's what the city of Springfield is looking at with the 3/4 cent sales tax. This was something that's been in place since 2010. It was created to help fund the former Fire and Police Pension Fund for firefighters and police officers hired in and before 2006. And it is set to expire in March of 2025. So can we trust the city to do the moral and ethical and honest thing and say thank you for following through on your commitment? No. Of course, they are going to try to get you to continue it on, to re-up it. There's an article, Springfield City Council will decide today whether or not to form a citizens commission to decide the future of the 3.25-cent sales tax. This has already been, listen, I've already heard from one person who's been told they're going to be on the commission. This is all theater. This is all pretending. This is all predetermined outcome. It's form a commission of hand-picked people that ultimately, in the whole, will recommend that the sales tax be put back on the ballot, and they will do polling, they will do research in order to find out what issues will make people most likely to vote for it, so that they can then market it that way. Mayor McClure pretending as if this is all, just flowing along in a natural state and not all predetermined, said there's a resolution on the agenda Monday evening that would appoint a commission on capital investment, community investment, our community. We're looking at 27 individuals that would be willing to serve in this role to give their guidance on that. If that is approved, it will be. Then this commission was started meeting, or will start meeting fairly quickly, and try to weigh all the options out there. There are several things the commission will consider. Firstly, what to do with the tax as it currently stands. Should they raise the tax even higher than 3/4? Should they lower it less than 3/4? Should they keep it the same? Or, follow through with what they promised in the beginning, and that is allow it to eliminate. Or it doesn't. It sunsets on its own. So they don't even have to recommend eliminate it because it goes away. I just wish once there was somebody in leadership that would stick to the commitment that's been made to the community. And I know how they rationalize it. They rationalize it by saying, well, we weren't the ones who made that commitment. We weren't the ones who, when we asked for the people to increase the sales tax 3/4 cent, that said, well, hey, in 10 years it'll sunset, it'll all be done, and thank you so much for your service to to our local treasury and to law enforcement and fire. That's how they rationalize it. Like, we didn't make that commitment. But it would be nice if, just out of honesty, out of a sense of morality and ethics, there was someone that was in a leadership position that said, no, we're not going to do this, because even though we weren't necessarily the ones that made that commitment, it was the city government that made that commitment, and we are now the city government. And yes, I'm sure we can come up with all sorts of fun things to spend that money on, but we made a commitment. Now, they may claim it wasn't a commitment, but we all know that's why, and that's why they sell it as sunsetting. If you go back to the marketing of this in 2010, they weren't out there saying, hey, this will, in 15 years, sunset. But by the way, we're going to embark on a campaign convincing you to go ahead and re-up it. So in reality, it will be indefinite. Did they say that? Is that how they marketed this? Of course not. It would just be nice if there was one person in leadership that had that level of integrity. But they don't, because money. Money, 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 money. Boy, they see that money and they just can't stand the thought of not having it. Money does very easily coax people into being corrupted. One of two things needs to happen. The first one of these I've been arguing for years. is there needs to be, as long as, and best I can tell, I've inquired about this, and I have not received feedback saying that it is in violation of the Missouri Constitution. As long as it's not in violation of the Constitution, there needs to be a law that says if a tax sunsets, you cannot ask the voters to re-up it for at least 1 year after it has expired. That way they can't go around telling, well, it's not actually a tax increase because, they won't be able to say that. Or, this is the second option, which I don't like nearly as much, but you do away with the sunsetting aspect of this. Every tax that is put into place by the voters does not go away unless the voters want it to go away. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want the tax to be permanent? Because inevitably, through their dishonest marketing, they make them permanent anyhow, but they trick people into thinking it's not. So at least if you eliminate their ability to mislead people and unethically market it as something that is temporary when they know very well it will not be temporary, then maybe these things would not pass. In other words, somebody who might support a temporary tax if they are told from the beginning, this is not temporary, this is indefinite, then those people may be less likely to vote for it because they're voting for something that is, that they have a truer, more honest understanding of the longevity of that tax. It's transparency. I suspect there's no way that will ever occur because these municipalities bank on the ability to bait and switch the people. And so they would lobby. You'd have, I'm sure, the city of Springfield would be one of the first ones to have their, I'm sure, 6-figure salaried lobbyist go up there to Jeff City and demand that the people not have that sort of benefit. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. There's a member of the Green Party that is running for the U.S. Senate in New Jersey. Her name is Christina Amira Khalil. She went viral after posting on social media that there was the earthquake that occurred up there on the East Coast, that it was caused by climate change. Because, of course, it was. Everything's climate change, right? Everything bad that happens is climate change. This is a very scientifically sound perspective that was offered up by someone that is asking to be in the United States Senate. Probably fit in just fine. Prominent social media users, whatever that is, mocked the post, which also received an ex-community note fact check providing the real reason for the event. Khalil took so much criticism for the post that she ended up deleting it, switching her account to protected mode so that the public couldn't view her post any longer. Following the 4.8 magnitude earthquake that was felt in New York, New Jersey, and other Northeast U.S. states, Khalil posted, quote, "I experienced my first earthquake in New Jersey. We never get earthquakes. The climate crisis is real. The weirdest experience ever." The aspiring politician's theory went viral only hours after it was posted, gaining millions of views thanks to the help of big accounts sharing it for the sake of mocking it on their feeds. Users like GOP Congressman Dan Crenshaw laid into the progressive politician's post, writing, quote, "Holy crap, I was just joking about people blaming climate change, and then this genius pops up, a Senate candidate no less." I mean, honestly, it isn't any less scientific than the vast majority of events that the left blames on climate change. And in the context that the climate changes are something that only occur because man has created them. The scientifically based understanding is that our planet, like every planet with an atmosphere, does have cycles with the climate. These have occurred since the beginning of time. It's not something that you can stop from occurring any more than you can stop it from becoming warm during the day when the sun is up. The days have cycles. The months and seasons have cycles. We have massive cycles, be it when it comes to weather or, in the larger context, climate. And this idea that climate should somehow stay at one steady constant, a constant which has yet to be identified, and never change no matter what, and if it does, that means something is wrong, is absurd and unscientific. Whether it is claiming that because man has caused the climate to change, and that leads to tornadoes and rain and desert and fires, or be it earthquakes, those are all equally about as anti-science in their evaluation and approach that anyone could take. And so she would fit in just fine, frankly, probably in the U.S. Senate. A little over a week ago, while President Trump was visiting with family members of the slain New York City police officer, as you know, Biden, Clinton, Obama all got together with other rich celebrities in order to try and raise money for Joe Biden. And there was a haul of $26 million that night, and the left really utilized that in order to tout how the momentum is on the side of Joe Biden. that he could raise such record amounts in one night. Trump did what Trump tends to do, and that is annihilate this so-called record of Joe Biden's. The Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee had an event of their own on Saturday night, raking in more than $50.5 million during a dinner in Palm Beach. So the Democrats running around touting, the momentum's behind Joe Biden. I mean, sure, yeah, the poll numbers and everything, but this is a sign when you got that kind of money come in one night. And Donald Trump, I mean, look at this guy. He can't raise that sort of money. Almost twice the amount. And by the way, it took not just Biden, but he had to get Clinton and Obama involved in order to raise the $26 million. You don't see Donald Trump asking past Republican presidents to show up and beg for money for him. This does somewhat block in Democrats from trying to criticize these dollars as well. Those don't count because they're from really rich people. Oh, as opposed to all of the celebrities that attended the Biden event. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Coming up this Saturday is a call to action, Ozarks Conservative Convention. There will be a number of speakers, including Chris Ann Hall, William Federer, Robert Brown, and you can win a pair of tickets to the event by going to KSGF.com. Get yourself registered there, and there's additional information as well if that's something you would like to purchase tickets for. Perhaps you register to win and you do not win, and so that way you can purchase your tickets for that event coming up on Saturday. Again, the details at KSGF.com. Kamala Harris is just dumb. It is. It's like every time she sets a conversation tone in a manner that indicates she's going to teach you something, she ends up making a complete moron out of herself. She was doing, and I'm sure many of you may have seen this. Did you see this thing about the basketball brackets?
I don't think so.
All right. So
Is this the one that Biden posted?
I'm sure he did not post this.
Okay.
She was doing an interview, and she's talking about March Madness. And in it, she makes the claim, so you fill out the brackets and everything, that this was something that wasn't allowed to, I guess, I don't even know really what she's trying to say here too much, but you can listen to her comments here.
Do you know? Okay, a bit of a history lesson.
Oh.
Do you know that the women's teams were not allowed to have brackets until 2022? Think about that. And talk about progress, better late than never, but progress. And what that has done, because of course, when, I had a bracket, it's not broken completely, but I won't talk about my bracket. But you know what, how we love March Madness, and even just now allowing the women to have brackets and what that does to encourage people to talk more about the women's teams, to watch them. Now they're being covered, and this is the reality. People used to say, women's sports, who's interested? Well, if you can't see it, you won't be. But when you see it, you realize,
This, of course, resulted in a great deal of public expressions of confusion and notations that, of course, this isn't true. Noting Obama, the media used to make such a big deal out of Obama filling out his women's brackets, and I wonder who he'll pick, and it was just such a big deal. And then for Kamala to claim that wasn't allowed. And a lot of people are like, what does that even mean? Like, what? People at what? So there was also a great deal of attempts to try and figure out what she was trying to say. That becomes the intellectual challenge that a lot of people embark upon. It's not simply, well, okay, once again, she has no idea what she's talking about. But then almost as like a puzzle, trying to figure out, well, let's try and figure out what she was trying to say. What was in her mind, what was going on? Where did things go wrong? One such person was Con Carroll of the Washington Examiner, and there's a piece, What's the Matter with Kamala Harris? And there was an attempt here, and it seems to be, I imagine, the best explanation as to how she got to the point where she was making such an odd claim. And the story, quotes her saying what you just heard her say. And in the piece, it's noted that the political point she's trying to make is obvious. Women's sports would be just as popular as men's sports if only the bigoted white men in charge would let the women have brackets sooner. He says there is a tiny nugget of truth somebody could find there. The men's tournament first expanded to 64 teams divided into four 16-team regions back in 1985, while the women's tournament did not expand to a similar 64-team format until 1994. But even then, women have had their own smaller tournaments of at least 32 teams with regional brackets since 1982. That was over 40 years ago. Someone with even a passing familiarity with college basketball should have known that 2022 number was absolutely wrong. For as long as there has been an internet where you could fill out and print brackets, you've been able to print both men's and women's brackets. Obama filled out women's brackets every year he was in office starting in 2009. So what the heck was Harris talking about when she said women's teams were not allowed to have brackets in 2022? Now, this is where he thinks this came from. The answer appears to be on the NCAA's women's basketball tournament Wikipedia page, which says, quote, as of 2022, the tournament follows the same format and selection process as its men's counterpart, with 32 automatic bids awarded to the champions of the Division I conference and 36 at-large bids extended by the NCAA Selection Committee, which are placed into four regional divisions and seeded from 1 to 16. Now, a person totally unfamiliar with college basketball might read that sentence and think that it means that the women did not have brackets until 2022, but that is not what the sentence is clearly trying to say. The sentence means to say that up until 2022, the women's tournament consisted of 64 teams divided into four regions of 16 teams, just as the men's tournament did from 1985 through 2010. Then in 2011, the men's team added four play-in games, extending the field to 68 teams. The women did not have the additional four-team format for a total of 68 teams until 2022. But they've had brackets since the women's tournament was first created in 1982. And yes, the men's tournament did have 64 teams for a whole 9 years longer than the women's tournament, but that is not the reason why the men's tournament is so much more popular. Harris could have said, did you know the women's tournament didn't have a full 64-team field like the men did until 1994? But that would not have been as dramatic. Instead, what most likely happened, and I think that this is probably most likely what happened, is some junior staffer was prepping talking points for Harris, went to Wikipedia, saw that sentence that the women's tournament didn't have the same format and selection process as its men's counterpart in 2022, and then ignorantly translated that into women's teams were not allowed to have brackets until 2022. He notes in his piece, anyone with a passing familiarity with college basketball should have known that claim was false. Anyone with any memory of the Biden or Obama administration should have also known that to be false, given that Obama was always filling out those brackets publicly. And yet, there is Harris confidently giving a completely fake history lesson to a local television station. So what's the matter with Harris? The answer appears to be a solid mix of grotesque ignorance and bad staffing. I think at the same time, it does once again reflect on a problem we have in media today, and that is that the journalist interviewing her did not say, what I don't even know, just let her go on. Like Jill Biden last week, when she falsely claimed that Joe Biden was leading in all the swing states in the latest polling, and they just, oh, okay. I mean, there is a reflection here in work ethic that completely lacks, not just generationally, or it isn't, to a degree it's generationally, but it really is philosophical approach. And you see this a lot with young people who are left-wingers that are once again entitled, that don't believe they should have to work for anything. They are awesome just because they exist. And when you have that approach to things in life, this is what tends to happen. This is what tends to happen when you put people in positions that are not equipped to be in those positions, which we have seen this administration really lean into. What an absolute embarrassment. And what's even further embarrassing is that this isn't going to get probably as much attention as it could, not so much because the media is in constant protection mode for Kamala Harris, but because this really is not an anomaly for her. Saying something stupid that demonstrates she is clueless and ditzy has become almost a shoulder shrug, I think, even amongst Democrats. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Latest news update. Now, I did remember reading, I didn't talk about it, the Biden bracket in which they kept having to delete it and re-put because he kept, or
Yes.
it wasn't him, obviously.
Yes, so he posted his bracket, and then 4 hours later, he deleted it, and then he posted it again, and then he deleted again. It's because he misspelled Stanford as Standford. He did that multiple times, and then he also spelled West Virginia wrong, and he actually didn't get that right until I think the third time of posting it. So it's funny because both of them
Right,
apparently
just
don't know
clueless.
how to work a March Madness bracket.
Well, and I think we all know that Biden did not fill that out.
Oh, yeah,
and
I know.
Kamala has no clue whatsoever. So, as it was suggested in the Washington Examiner, it was probably somebody on her staff that looked up Wikipedia
Yeah.
and completely misunderstood because they don't understand, which I can understand if you have no concept of how college basketball works, because I'm one of those people.
Yeah,
It's not
same.
something I follow, and so when people are talking about all of this stuff, it's beyond my comprehension. But I also recognize that this is a difference between intellectually curious people and so many people, particularly on the left, that just think that they know everything and they don't have to learn anything. If I were to get into Wikipedia to try to figure this out, I'd be like, this is not, somebody else needs to write for her this little history lesson. I am not the person equipped to do this because I don't understand how a lot of this works. I don't know the background of it. But that's not the way these people operate. They are always, every one of them is the smartest person in the room. And so then it ends up humiliating her. But it isn't, the environment's not one in which somebody's going to lose their job because they absolutely humiliated the vice president or allowed her to once again humiliate. They gave her an assist in humiliating herself on the national stage once again because those are the low standards. And when you hire people and put people in positions that they are unqualified for because they check off a certain box, this is what you get. You do not get quality whatsoever. And that's what we've seen from this administration, whether it's some potentially low-level staffer or the head of a department like Pete Buttigieg. First Alert Forecast sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Partly sunny today, a high near 79, 53 tonight. Slight chance of rain throughout the day tomorrow with a high near 70, and Wednesday, 60% chance of rain with a high near 63. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Are you out there looking for a new gun shop? If so, I've got a name for you, and that name is Quick Draw Gun in Monette. Shop, it's easy to find, just a quick shot down 60, and it is worth the drive down there. One thing that you're going to hear over and over again about Quick Draw Gun is their friendly atmosphere and their amazing customer service, and I can attest to that. I used Quick Draw Gun to purchase my first ever firearm, and the husband, he went down there to purchase his AR-15, and I've also used them for their custom laser engraving services as well. And we keep going back because they really do have wonderful customer service. And I do also want to mention that they are always adding new services and new product lines to the shop. So whether you are looking to purchase your first ever firearm or you're looking to add to that collection, I recommend Brad and his team at Quick Draw Gun in Monette. Now, in the meantime, if you have any questions or maybe you're out there looking for something specific, go ahead and give Brad a call today. You can find all of that contact information plus shop hours and the shop address. All of that information is going to be housed under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Was it a year ago or two? I tried to find the audio just now, and I could not find it. But remember when Kamala, I think it was wherever she went to college, she went, I don't know if it was like a Final Four thing or March Madness, into the locker room after a game when that team lost.
Yes.
And she was talking of
I'm going to find that audio for you.
And she was I think she was really playing up the fact that they were how was it that she worded this? What was so great about what they did is that they stuck with it until the end, because everyone's like, well, that's how it works. I mean, there's a clock. You play until it's done. You don't go, well, I guess we're just too far behind. We'll go ahead and quit at this point. And here they had lost, and she comes in and is so uninspiring. Like, they give a crap what she says anyway. And it just was another one of these moments. And what's great about the complete embarrassing moment most recently, in which she claims that people weren't allowed to fill out brackets for women's college basketball until 2022, is that it was all presented like she was telling this local reporter, who I'm guessing he was a sports reporter for the local affiliate, because he was, covering basketball. And it was all set up to make it look like she was giving him history. She was schooling him. And just it could not have been more perfectly written in order to demonstrate what an idiot she is and how idiotic the people in her office are. And you can't help but wonder if the high turnover are people that are actually relatively competent individuals, and they get out because if you are somewhat competent and you are in that sort of train wreck of an office in which people who are complete morons are essentially rewarded by not being removed from the positions, and you're surrounded by people like this, and people that if you are competent and you try to, based off of merit, reward people so that the office itself overall improves, and you get punished for it, or you get told, well, you can't get rid of that person because, they're in this category or that category. We can't have that. You can see why you run competent people off. And this is how you end up oftentimes with this, it feeds itself. And it's this way in any organization, any business you have, or any White House you have. If people who are incompetent are not allowed to be held accountable, the people who are competent eventually make their way out, because you just do not want to be, by definition, as a competent person, you don't want to be in that environment. And it could help explain why some of these individuals have continued to get in that office thinking, well, there's some prestige here. This is a great resume enhancer. Here I am in the office of the vice president. And then they say, no, I don't think so. This is not going to be beneficial for me at all. It reminds me, we want to talk about compare and contrast of treatment. The fact that the media still will portray ultimately Kamala Harris as this amazing inspiration and put her in a category of others as if she is intellectually sound, versus the treatment that somebody like former Vice President Dan Quayle got, who to this day is synonymous with, quote, misspelling potato. I mean, if you ask the average person who knows nothing else, but they know the name Dan Quayle, about Dan Quayle, that's probably what they'll remember. Oh, that's the vice president who did not know how to spell potato. Yet Kamala Harris cannot open her mouth without consistently demonstrating that she's an idiot, and she is still held up as if she should be some sort of role model for young women. You know, the crappy thing about that whole deal with Dan Quayle, for those that weren't around at the time or remember what the media used to define his entire political career as he was vice president under Bush. And he was doing one of those vice presidential things where he goes to an elementary school, and there was a spelling bee going on that day, and so his handlers, thought, oh, well, let's have him sort of host, if you will, the spelling bee and have the note cards and read off the words for the kids to spell. And so one of the words was potato, and these were cards that were handed. And interestingly enough, he had actually asked ahead of time, has somebody gone through all these? And Bill Kristol was part of his staff at the time. And it was either Bill Kristol or someone else that said, oh, yeah, they've all been looked through. They're not difficult words. We're talking about just sort of regular run-of-the-mill words. And one of the words was potato, and it was misspelled on the card. It was misspelled. And so Dan Quayle gets to the word potato, and the kid spells it correctly without an E. And Dan Quayle looks at the card, and he sees that it has, and he's like, well, that doesn't seem right. And he kind of shows it to someone else, and they nod their head, yeah, that's right. And so he tells the kid, he's like, oh, you're so close, you need to put an E on it. And it turned out that Dan Quayle's instincts were correct, that the teacher or whomever wrote up the card spelled it wrong. Well, that, of course, being the media, was turned into Dan Quayle doesn't know how to spell. And that defined his, not just the vice presidency, but his entire political career. Meanwhile, you have Kamala Harris, who just absurdly, on any given day, demonstrates that she doesn't have two cells in her brain to rub together, yet she is still held up as some great example of what any president would want as a vice president. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Now, I knew that there was audio. Sarah found the audio that was, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago of Kamala giving a post-game message. She was back at Howard, and the team lost, and here she was in the locker room with her brilliant words at the time of inspiration.
Played hard, played to the very last second.
made all us Bisons so. You hustled out there. You are smart. You are disciplined. You put everything you had into the game. And that's what it's about, right? Until the last minute. You guys did that. You didn't stop until the last second. You did not stop. And that is so inspiring. So you keep playing with chin up and shoulders back. Because you showed the world who Bison are. Right? I mean, you literally what you have done is in historic proportion. I was at Howard back in the day where we were just happy that there was a game, much less getting to this place, right? And I see Bison literally all over the world. And we've been talking about you, this team, you all, this team, this year, this team. You make us so proud. So I know you may not be feeling great right now, okay? But know who you are. You are excellence. You are hard work. You are powerful. And you are winners. All right? So please know that. Please know that. And I'll see you later. And if you guys ever want to come and do a White House tour, where's Coach? Where's Coach? There you are. Come, so we plan, if you guys want at some point, right? When it's like, when you feel like playing hooky at Friday afternoon, whatever, just come and we'll do a White House tour, okay? All right, I'm so proud of you guys.
That locker room pep talk does give insight into her recent remarks regarding the claim that you weren't allowed to fill out brackets for women's basketball until 2022. Because you hear that, and that's somebody who's demonstrating she has no idea what she's talking about, right? She has no clue. She's like, you guys were out there dribbling the ball, and you were on the court, and you were just, running around, and yeah, that was great. And so you could tell she has absolutely this was somebody thrown into a situation. She doesn't know anything about the game. Nothing whatsoever. So she doesn't have any insight. So she just has to, like a fourth grader who didn't actually read the book, but has to give up and give an oral book report and just sort of just saying these standard broad brush sort of things. And so what appears, I imagine, happened is she wanted to sound like she actually knew what she was talking about. So one of her staffers went to Wikipedia, misunderstood what exactly Wikipedia was talking about because they themselves didn't know anything about college basketball, and ends up telling her, who gives a, quote, history lesson to a local journalist, that you weren't allowed to fill out women's brackets until 2022. Yeah, you just should not try. Acting as if you know something about something that you know nothing about. You cannot pull it off. And I guess if there's anything that you wanted to compliment Kamala Harris as being really great at, it would be demonstrating that example. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. First Alert Forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Color 10 Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Partly sunny today, high near 79. Clouds low around 53 tonight. Slight chance of rain throughout the day tomorrow, high near 70. And Wednesday, a 60% chance of rain with a high near 63. The head of the terrorist organization Hezbollah on Friday declared that Israel would soon face defeat thanks to pressure from the United States, siding with them. Also promising an inevitable response to the attack on an Iranian consulate. So here you have Hezbollah openly declaring that they are on the road to turning things around and defeating Israel because of the alliance the Biden administration has formed with the terrorist organization Hezbollah. And by the way, not saying, well, once the ceasefire's in place, then we can all go back to peace, saying we are going to destroy them. Behnam Ben Tablo, a senior fellow at the Foundation of Defense of Democracies, told Fox News Digital as Biden begins to hedge on U.S. partners like Israel through his rhetoric, Iranian partners and allies are circling the wagons and limiting the political distance between them. This is an own goal of strategic proportions. The administration risks enabling an axis of resistance even further through such rhetoric and actions. Hezbollah's Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah on Friday gave a speech in commemoration of Iran's Quds Day, an international day expressing support for the Palestinian people, calling for the end of the Israeli occupation. And so now you have the terrorist organization that is more openly noting their alliance with the Biden administration. This is all done, or at least part of the motivation from the Biden administration is they believe that they have to win over the anti-Semitic wing of the Democrat Party. They've clearly done the calculations and the math here. And they have determined that they have more to gain in terms of their reelection chances by catering towards the anti-Semitic wing of the party than they do the pro-Israel wing or the non-anti-Semitic wing. And much of this surrounds Michigan. Michigan has a very vocal anti-Semitic segment of the population. And there is a sense amongst the Biden-Harris campaign that if they do not win Michigan, then it is game over. And so if that means siding with Hezbollah, helping Hezbollah rebuild their infrastructure that was instrumental in the terrorist attack on October 7th, and betraying our alliance with Israel, then so be it. You know, if a few more Jews have to die in order for Biden to get reelected, in their minds, it's worth it. Give you a sense of whom it is that this administration is catering to. There was a rally held over the weekend in Dearborn, Michigan. This is not Iran. This is in Michigan. And this is the base or the portion of the Democrat Party that the Democrats are catering to.
We've been asked in the past, why are our protests on the International Day of Quds, why are they so anti-America? Why don't we just focus more on Israel and not talk so much about America? Gaza has shown the entire world why these protests are so anti-America. Because it's the United States government that provides the funds for all of the atrocities that we just heard about. And this is why Imam Khomeini, who declared the International Day of Quds, this is why he would say to pour all of your chants and all of your shouts upon the head of America.
That's death to America.
Malcolm X said, and I quote, We live in one of the rottenest countries that has ever existed on this earth. It's not Genocide Joe that has to go. It's the entire system that has to go. Any system that would allow such atrocities and such devilry to happen and would support it, such a system does not deserve to exist on God's earth. And so when these fools ask us if Israel has the right to exist, the chant death to Israel has become the most logical chant in the world today.
So this is, and there's another bit of audio I want to share with you in a moment. This is in Michigan. Dearborn. This is the segment of the population that the Biden administration is working to keep their support. Calling for not just the death to America, or death to Israel, but death to America. Openly declaring. We live in a country where a 72-year-old grandma was just sentenced to a year in prison and facing a $250,000 fine because she prayed outside the Capitol, and when the doors were opened, she went in for about 10 minutes, had a friendly, cordial conversation with a police officer, and then left. She's sentenced to a year in prison. Meanwhile, you can have people who openly avow to destroy this country, calling for the death to this country, and those are the people, not only is nothing done, but this administration is trying to win their favor. In order to demonstrate that the calls for the elimination of all Jews in America is a family affair and a family-friendly event in the mind of these left-wing activists, they got children involved.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
There you go, children. Dearborn, Michigan, at a rally. Israel drive them from the river to the sea is a call for finishing what Hitler started and the complete elimination of the Jewish state. These are the people that the Biden campaign and the Biden administration are catering to. If you were awakened from a coma after years and you were to listen to the media, you would think that Donald Trump is the one who caters to radicals. 72-year-old grandmas who pray outside the Capitol. You can see why it is that the Department of Justice is laser focused on Americans like that, while at the same time trying to curry favor with individuals like the one that you just heard. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Doris said, if you are looking for a real estate agent who will give you 100%, her name is Emily Johnson from House Theory Realty. She was there for us 7 days a week. She made all of the signing effortless. She was referred to us, and we were so pleased with her work ethic that we also referred her. Emily deserves the best possible review. You will not be sorry if you give her a call. You see that consistently. You hear that consistently from real-life experiences that people have here in the area. So if you want the best when it comes to buying a home or selling your home, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. And if not for you, as Doris there mentioned, someone recommended Emily to me. You can make that recommendation as well. Help somebody's process that could otherwise be stressful and just, make your hair fall out. It can be so stressful. Have it be a pleasant experience. Then you can offer them that by recommending Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. The Financial Times is reporting that the Biden administration is drawing up plans to require goods produced in Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank to be clearly labeled as coming from there, according to U.S. officials. The final go-ahead for the move and its timing have not been decided, but it is intended to increase pressure on Israel over rising settler violence against Palestinians in the West Bank and comes amid U.S. frustration with the Jews and their conduct in the war in Gaza. The move would reverse a policy introduced by the Trump administration in 2020 that required goods produced in the West Bank to be labeled as made in Israel. This is, again, the juxtapositioning of Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. Whereas Donald Trump didn't believe that we ought to label things just because they're made by Jews. And so he reversed that. Joe Biden and the administration is looking at putting it back in place. Maybe they can require them to wear armbands as well. Have we ever seen that happen in history? The administration has used the accidental killing of 7 aid workers by the Israeli government as a reason to force Israel to surrender to Hamas. Many people have noted that the Biden administration, in a drone strike, took out innocent individuals, including 7 kids, in the disastrous withdrawal of Afghanistan. Kind of an apples-to-apples comparison. Not according to this administration, of course. While the administration uses it to hammer away at Israel, apparently it's somehow different when they do it versus the United States of America. This is Pentagon Press Secretary, Air Force Major General Pat Ryder on the question.
In August 21, 2021, the U.S. launched a drone strike that killed 7 children and 3 adults. For several days, people in this building, including your predecessor and the former chairman, insisted it was a righteous mission. Nobody was punished for it. Nobody lost their job over it. I mean, is the U.S. really in a position to be outraged about what happened in Israel, since it seems to almost mirror what happened what the U.S. did in Afghanistan?
Yeah, Mike. I mean, I appreciate the question, but I'm not going to be able to talk about the past. All I can talk about today is the present. And the fact is, 7 civilians who were delivering food to people who are in extreme need were killed in an airstrike. So it's a tragic situation. I think we can all agree. And so I'll just leave it there.
Well, when we did it, that was years ago. I mean, no biggie. John Kirby also pressed with this. He, of course, the White House National Security Communication Advisor. On with Martha McCallum of Fox News.
We all have seen over the course of history that when war is provoked by an aggressor, the retaliation sadly ends up with tens of thousands of people killed in many cases. When we left Afghanistan, we had a similar tragic Hellfire missile attack that landed and killed 10 people. A man who was carrying water, bringing water as part of the humanitarian aid. And at that point, when you were asked, what are we going to do about that? Who's accountable for that? This is what you said, John.
None of their recommendations dealt specifically with issues of accountability. So I do not anticipate there being issues of personal accountability to be had with respect to the August 29th airstrike.
So there were 7 children that were killed by that U.S. Hellfire missile.
Yeah.
No accountability, you said, was part of the plan. So why is this so different than what we did there?
Well, look, these are events that happened 3 years apart, 2 different geographic locations, 2 different countries, 2 different sets of circumstances, 2 different types of threat that were being evaluated, and completely 2 different militaries that were involved with 2 different chains of command. So I think we got to be careful comparing both events too closely. We too had an independent investigation, Martha, of that incident. And that independent investigator found that there was no need for personal accountability to be had, but did find that the U.S. military needed to make some systemic changes, procedural changes in how we looked at intelligence and acted on that intelligence. The Israelis similarly have said the same thing about this event this week with the WCK strike, that they're going to make some systemic changes. Now we're glad to hear that, and we're going to be watching to see what those changes are and how they can put them into effect.
So the differences are clear. I mean, it was a different country. It was a different time. It was like 3 years ago. Different military, different enemy, different day of the week. The weather was different. The people who were responsible had different things for breakfast that day. So clearly these 2 things shouldn't be compared. What an absolute embarrassment of an administration. No accountability for anything, even while at the same time demanding others. Incidentally, Israel fired their 2 senior officers, got rid of them. Israel led the effort to hold themselves accountable. If only we had leadership like that in this country. All right, everyone. Hey, guess what? This Friday, we will be broadcasting at Scramblers, Extra Mile Home Inspection Real Estate Repair. It will also be a first responders breakfast. Barker's Frame and Collision, Pyramid Roofing Company, all sponsoring that. So if you're a first responder, we'd love for you to come out and join us this Friday at Scramblers. Get yourself some free breakfast. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.